This is Pat Baker, and in this video note, we're going to go through the Hello activity, give you some tips on how to get started this semester in writing your first Java program. So I have the module pulled up, and you're going to click here to go ahead and do that activity. And our activities are usually giving you some tips on how to tackle some topics in the chapter. So they're usually much simpler than what you'd be doing in your programming assignment. But to see the activity instructions, you're going to click on this link here and will pop up the activity. So the first thing it asks you to do is to download your starting source code. That's in a file called Hello Java. So go back and take a look at that. And we'll put it inside of our workspace. So this is some starting code for you. So I'm going to right click, save this link as, and go ahead and put it inside your workspace. So I put my workspace on my desktop and I gave it a name, Workspace Spring 2016, but you could have any workspace name. Our Java project is CSC 110 and we're putting it in the source code folder. And this is chapter 1. Activity, so I'm going to put it in the chapter 1 full package. So there's our source code, our starting source code. Let's go ahead and now open up Eclipse. I'm going to modify the size of my screen here, and if you click on chapter 1 and refresh, you'll see that we have the Hello Java code in there. It's got some errors in there. That's because we have to put the package name in there. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Oops. And it has to be the name of what you named the package. So ch1 semicolon. And now when I go ahead and run it, which I want you to do, you shouldn't have any errors. Okay. And that was just the first time I've used this workspace, so it took a little longer. And you're always going to want to check that the output is what you're anticipating. So it is. And so let's go back and look at what the activity asks us to do next. So we've done that. There are no errors. Now we're going to add some statements, and you're adding these statements to just see how some of these output statements in Java work, and to get familiar with using Eclipse in your development environment. So the first thing we're going to look at is we'll add these two lines and then take a look at the output, which is a good strategy. Okay, so I've got those two statements, or I have this one statement put in there. That looks like a duplicate, don't need that. And let's see what it's doing now, and I'm going to put that blank line in there too, system.out.println. And when we don't put anything in the parentheses, it will just give us a blank line. So let's run that and see what we get. So we get hello world, Java is great, everything's looking good. So let's go to the next statement inside our workspace, inside of our assignment activity, and we'll add those. So we're going to add these 4 lines of code here and then see what happens. And we're going to especially look at what's the difference between print and print line. Okay, so I've added these next 4 lines, and let's observe what happens when we run that. Here on the run command and say okay. It's always saving things. So hello world, that's being displayed from that line of code, and then Java is great from this line of code here. We have a blank line, there's the blank line, and now this is what's interesting here. Let's look at these 4 statements and see if you can figure out what is the difference between print and print line. I'll give you a minute to think about that. Print doesn't put a new line at the end of the statement. So we're going to write out 3. We stay right here. We get another print. It writes out 2, stays right here. and then we write out 1, but 1 is now a print line, so it'll go to a new line and then write out blast off. So let's go to our assignment and look and see what the next thing we should be adding is. Let's see where I got that. So we're adding up what are called some escape sequences, and that is a backslash here. So we'll take a look at those and see what effect they have on your code. Okay, we're back, and I've added those couple lines of code here, and what's unusual about these, or what I want you to observe about these, are these extra pieces of code we've added here, a backslash n, a backslash t, and let's see what those do. Those are what are called escape sequences. So you're not going to see the n written out, and you're not going to see the t written out. They actually perform a task. So let's go ahead and run that. I'm actually going to click that off. I don't need to see that. I know it's going to save it. So let me open up my output window a little bit bigger so you can see that. I don't need to see that now. So we're curious what's happening right here with the Houston. So the backslash n, notice we ended up with blast off, and it went to a new line, and backslash n Houston gives us a new line, and then in the middle of it we're getting another new line. So that means it's going to a new line, and the backslash t says tab over with we have a problem, and then we have a print line, so it goes to a new line, and then stay calm. So a couple different ways of displaying going to a new line. That's using print line or using a backslash n inside quotes. The other thing I want to point out as you're getting started with the structure of your code of your Java programs, we're going to have our package name. That's an Eclipse thing. And then our class will be called the exact same thing as our source code file name. So caps and everything. So this is hello, and it's stored in hello.java. So you're always going to have a public class and then the name, and then we'll have another method called main that you're going to always have in your code. You're not going to change that. And this is where all your code is going to be entered inside the main. The other thing I want you to always be thinking about is that you should be, and it did have in the project, the activity to fill this in, so that you're always filling in the information about your program. Okay, so let's look at the last task they wanted you to take a look at, and that is what's called concatenation. So we're going to add these two lines of code in, and what you're looking at is there's one system.out, and we've got our string that we want to display on two lines, and you'll notice we have to put the plus there, and the plus is taking this string and putting it together or concatenating it with this string. So I'm going to go ahead and add that code, and we'll take a look at it. All right, I have that line of code added into our hello program, and let's see what the output is. Okay, so notice this displays on one line, even though we have written this on two separate lines inside our code. That's what the plus does. It takes this string and puts it together with this string. And this is called not a plus, but a concatenation. And I could have that all on one line if I wanted to. That would be the same. That would give me exactly the same output. And there you go, it does. So in summary, this was just a walk through this very first activity, and you're going to be typing this in on your own. Some things to think about that we demonstrated in this activity is you really just want to add one line of code, test it, add the next line of code, test it, and see if it's giving you the output that you desire. When you get your code all ready, then you're going to go ahead and get it ready to submit inside Canvas. And let me show you how I like to see that your output at the bottom of your code. So below your class here, we're going to put what's called a multi-line comment. So it starts with a forward slash and an asterisk and ends with an asterisk and a forward slash. The compiler completely ignores anything that's a comment. So I'm just going to put output here, and we're going to take a picture of our output. That tells me that you looked at your output, your code compiled, and that the output resembles what's required in the activity. So I'm just going to copy that with a Control-C, pop back here, and paste it in with a Control-V, save my code so that it has this in here, and then that complete file will be what you submit in Canvas. Just double check that you haven't introduced any errors, and you haven't, and you're ready to go. So hopefully this helped you get started with your first activity. The best thing to do is just keep trying and playing around. What happens when you put a print line here, or what happens when I take the ln off of that? How does that affect my output? So hopefully this was helpful, and we'll see you in class.